Hello guys, good evening. Sagar this side. So do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, so how many of you are attending this for the first time? There was the Palo Alto session which I conducted last 2 weeks back.
This is my first thing.
Okay.
I'm also attending first time.
Okay. All right. So let me just go and brief what this course is about. So this is start of our firewall mastery course. So if you can see the screen, this is where we are at as of now. Okay, 22nd, 7:30 p.m. IST, which is where we are starting FI LTM. After my session, there would be parallelly another session for Palo Alto, because this session is also getting started today. So those guys who want to complete both modules parallelly can go ahead with this way. Or if you want to cover one module at a time, then you can select either FI or Palo Alto and accordingly proceed. Okay. So each module is 1 month long. So you have this going on for 1 month. Palo Alto is for a 1 month. And once these two modules are done, then you go with the third module. And then after the completion of that, you take another 1 month for checkpoint. And the last 1 month is for the final firewall here, which is FortiGate firewall. So I just want to know from you guys, are you from the security background? Or if you're from security, then which vendor or which firewall have you worked? Or if it is only you're only from routing switching, then you can just call out yourself. So I just want to understand what are the audience here. Yes, go
So
ahead.
do you want us to talk by phone or type it? Like me, I'm from routing and switching mainly, but I have just a little bit of the idea of the firewall, Cisco firewall.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm from routing and switching only. No, I'm never have experience with like firewall and all. Like in software, firewall is okay, but not like hardware. Cisco like.
I'm also from routing and switching background.
Okay. So no one from network security domain, that means.
No, not network security domain.
Okay. How about Jagan, Farooq, Edmond, Safwan, Prasad?
Yeah, Jagan this side. So I'm from cybersecurity, where I used even checkpoint as well, only for the purpose of endpoint related. That's it. We have not enabled the feature for firewall in that.
Okay. Okay, understood. So you are from the network security or from the cyber security? What is your expectation from this batch? Because here we are covering it from the network security.
Yes. But what I've not done, I've joined a new organization where they use the Palo Alto firewall. So that's why I'm more interested to check what we are going to do, proceed, what we will learn and what does it do, the firewall does, what are the roles and responsibilities for it. Okay. So that's why I like to know about what is it related. So that's why I joined the session for a
Okay, sure. Okay.
So this is Prasad. I have worked with Cisco Firepower and Huawei firewalls and FI LTM. But all three I have worked on a basic level, nothing in-depth packet inspection or in-depth packet level of troubleshooting, which is what I am looking forward for. Apart from that, I also want to explore FortiGate and Palo Alto. So that's my motive to join this.
Okay. So you have you configured on LTM and Palo, or you're looking only?
I have configured very basic thing on LTM and Cisco Firepower and Huawei, but nothing advanced. Like if you talk about FI LTM in terms of adding the what SSH offload and some certificates, those or maybe iRules, those things are something I have not worked on.
Okay.
Basic things, yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, Danish, Krishna.
Hi, Sagar. Yeah, I have worked upon Cisco ASA, FTD, and Palo Alto Firewall. But the thing is that at the basic level only, I know about those products. But I'm here to learn more in depth with ASA, Palo Alto, and FI. This is my priority.
Okay, got it. Yeah, Danish, I see you unmute.
I am not from security background. This is my first time. I have to learn from basics.
Okay, got it. So guys, let me tell you, this batch is going to start from very scratch. We're thinking that you're from a routing, switching, or a non-networking security background. Okay, that is why we have given allocated 1 month each on the technology here. So regarding the curriculum, let me just tell you, we would be covering in the Palo Alto, we would be covering.
Sagar, I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So currently we are taking one course, F5. Okay.
Mhm.
Parallelly, we are running Palo Alto. I want to take only F5 for this month. So Palo Alto will be the next month, or it will be the end?
We will have this in the next month too, because it's one of the most popular technology. So we have this dedicated batches too in the next month. But if you miss out any other thing, might be you have to wait for it in the end only.
Okay.
Okay. In the case of Palo Alto, you can take it next month as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what. Okay. All right.
Okay, since as I told you, Palo Alto is something which is very popular. So we are covering the PCNSA in depth, and we also have PCNSC with Panorama covered in this curriculum. And from the certification, as I told you, these are something which we cover, and these are the advantage of joining the batch. You get the study material, you get the lab set, the remote lab access to the live classes. The live classes would be recorded and it given in the format of recording to lifetime access, and you get the automation topic, plus you will get that massive lab topology which you guys get when you take all the 5 technology. Okay, so this is a bonus lab topology, which will consist of all the 5 vendors in one single massive topology. I'm going to show you that what is that massive topology here. So similar way, all this way we have its own dedicated network diagram. So this is the network diagram for the Palo Alto batch. Then these are some of the workbooks there. So when you move towards the FI LTM, this is the lab topology. For Cisco ASA and FTD, we have created this as a network diagram. So this is where all your ASA boxes are kept. And on this side, you have the FTD with FMC module. When you move towards the FortiGate, then this is the FortiGate. We will test the NSC4. Yeah, by the way, for ASA FTD, we will test the CCNP syllabus of next gen firewall. And FI LTM, where LTM is the module we are gonna touch, and it would be 101201, the certification that we will touch here. Okay, and Palo Alto, I have already told you what it is. So this is something from the curriculum point of view. So I don't want to spend a lot of time because I have told this multiple times. And this is checkpoint. For checkpoint, we will take CCSA certificate, and we will cover the latest version 81, 81.5. Nowadays, you have 82 as well. Okay, so this is how it would be. And once you complete all the 5 technology, let's say you're master with all the 5 technology, you need in-depth knowledge now. So for that, we have designed this massive lab. So the benefit of this massive lab is we have kept all the vendors like Checkpoint, Palo Alto, FortiGate, ASA/FTD, and on the other side, we have kept FI LTM. So you guys would do all the end-to-end configuration. So in between, there is a MPLS cloud as well. So those who guys do not know MPLS, do not worry. I will give you the ready-made configuration as well. So you can go through that configuration and put down on this devices. But let's say you want in-depth knowledge. You want to configure yourself, right? That is how we learn. So I'll give you the blank topology with all the nodes. You will configure each and everything. So you will start with layer 2 switching knowledge. You will have your routing part. You will have your BGP knowledge. You have to come up with MPLS knowledge. So there is one firewall here. Every branch office, there is a firewall installed. So you have to allow the policy. On the other side, we have the LTM. So you have to work on the FIP creation, pool, node, certificate, license, right? So expect that after 4 to 5 months, when you start working on this, you will be master of all the 5 technology. So that is why this lab we specially give once the person or the participant has finished all his 5 standalone labs. Okay, so that is why we have a smaller lab initial days. So every technology will have its own standalone labs. Once you master this, you will be given with this massive thing where you can start working on your routing, switching, and the network security plus the load balancer concept. Okay, so any doubts so far? Any doubts so far?
No.
Okay, great. All right,
No
guys.
doubt. No doubt. We should be asking you what next. So which class are we in now? Are we in F5 or Paloalto, or you're just doing a clarification?
We are in this class. The
So
first.
what about if I want to start with Paloalto, what am I supposed to do?
So if you want to start with Palo Alto, we have this batch in another 15 to 20 minutes. As soon as my session for LTM is done, you have to remain on the same bridge. Don't go elsewhere. Remain on the same bridge. After my session, I'll hand over it to the PCNAC expert and he will take the Palo Alto session. So it's for everyone, not only for you. For anyone who wants to go parallelly, hand by hand, remain in the same bridge. I'll hand over the bridge to the next certified trainer and he will conduct the Palo Alto. And those who want to go with F5 or who Palo Alto, one at a time. So it's your choice. If you want to finish it, let's say you have some time crunch, you want to finish at a faster pace, then you can attend both simultaneously, okay, parallelly. So does that answer your doubt, Ola?
Yes. It's answered my doubt. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So guys, since you all are from routing switching, I just want to put very basic question. So let's say in routing, you have the router, you get some packet. So router is set to do the routing. So on what basis the router will do the routing of the packet?
Routing table.
Yes. Routing table is an important concept in routers. Let's say in firewalls, if you receive a similar packet, what happens first then? Does it also do a routing first?
I think it okay. So the router will do a permission lookup first.
Okay, so it will see the policy first, and depending upon the policy, what action has been asked to do, that is done. Let's say the action was set to permit it. Okay, so if the action was set to do a permit, then it will start inspecting the traffic. It will see whether it's a VPN encrypted, or if it's a layer 2 traffic, or it's a layer 3 traffic, and accordingly it will do the content analysis, app analysis. It will create the session, and it will do the needful, and then it will do the routing part as well, so that the packet is sent out. So that's the behavior of firewall. Let's say if the action was set to deny, what happens now? The packet which is trying to enter, if the action was told to deny, packet will drop instantly without spending any further overhead on processing them. So that is the behavior of a firewall. What happens in load balancer then? What happens in a load balancer? Let's say if a packet is ingressing, incoming, and the packet has to be sent elsewhere. So any idea what will happen?
Based on the load balancer method, it distributes the packets to servers, multiple servers. One packet will go to the server one, second packet will go to the server two, like that.
What we call that process?
Load balancing?
Yeah.
Algorithm, yeah, built on the algorithm hash value. It will, I think it has some cookies. Right.
That is all profiles and later part.
Oh, okay.
What load balancer normally do is when some packet is being sent, it will first see whether such VIPs are configured or not. It is now acting as a firewall. Let's say the VIP is set to allow only port 80. So it is like your firewall inspection itself, whether this is allowed or configured. Once that is available, it will do the algorithm check. It will see what servers are configured in the backend. So let's say I have 3 servers, server 1, server 2, server 3. So the algorithm says, should I send it to server 1, or should I send to server 2, or should I send to server 3? So the load balancer will keep all the information, which server is utilized to what extent. Let's say this is utilized to 80%, and it is having 100 TCP requests at the moment. Let's say you had the second server, which is 75%. One second. Let's say the second server, which is having 75%, and there were 90 TCP sessions, and then you have 74% with 88 TCP sessions. Now, where will the load balancer push the traffic? On which server will it push the traffic? Will it push to this, or this?
On server 3?
Yes, that is what load balancer will do. It will send it to server 3 because it is having the least utilization right now. Okay, now let's take the two terms in depth, that is firewalls and load balancer. How many are hearing the term load balancer for the very first time?
I am.
Okay, then you said it's taking the third server. Was that a guesswork?
No, based upon utilization,
Okay.
I gave
Okay, great.
just a basic concept.
Okay. No issues. That was a correct answer. Okay. All right. So let's say I have firewalls and load balancer. In terms of OSI layer, let's first discuss where firewall sits and where is the load balancer gonna sit. Where do you think firewall sits?
Layer 3, layer 4, and sometimes layer
Okay.
7.
Okay. Yeah.
Guys, be on mute if you're not. Okay. So traditional firewalls will work all the way from your L2 to L4, and your next gen firewalls will work all the way from L2 to L7. Okay. Whereas in the load balancer scenario, you have two types of load balancer, L4 and L7. Here, the traffic flow is on the basis of network layer. The traffic flow, whether it decide whether server 1, server 2, server 3. That happens when the data is associated with the network layer. And in the layer 7, it is when associated with the application layer. For example, let's say you are load balancing you're load balancing these traffic, TCP traffic, UDP traffic, or IP traffic. Now what happens? It works on the network layers, okay, network TCP layers. Whereas in the application, it's all your HTTP traffic or DNS traffic. So all this traffic, which is associated with this protocol, the load balancer is set to work on the L7. So L4 and L7, depending upon what traffic is getting load balanced. That means if you come back, the traffic here can be any type or any nature, right? It can be TCP, it can be UDP, it could be a HTTP. Depends on what VIP you created. Let's say you created a VIP HTTP, you created a VIP for TCP, you created for UDP. So on that basis, we kept these two types, L4 and L7. Okay, now regarding the next thing, regarding the what other difference do you think between firewalls, or what similarities do you think between firewalls and load balancer?
Directly connected to internet.
Which one?
Both.
So that is similarity you mean to say?
Right.
Okay. So let's say directly connected to ISP over on the outside interface. I hope you guys know what is outside interface, right? Directly connected to ISP during the public web configuration. Okay, now what other points we have? You can say similarity or dissimilarity, that's all okay. Come up with some points.
Can load balancer be used in internal networks also, right?
Yes, firewall also can be used for that.
Okay.
What time do you think we need a firewall in the LAN network or a inside network?
Both identifies the traffic nature.
No, in what scenario you want to keep firewall in your LAN network? Whom you want to secure, what traffic you want to secure? Because see, if I say firewall is to secure your outside to inside, but that is when you keep in the edge. But if you're keeping firewall in the LAN, then what are you trying to prevent in that nature? See, for example, this is my
Local LAN servers.
local
LAN network.
yes, some more.
It also depends on how much expensive data is. So I can decide how much money I have to spend on the firewall.
Why do you think we need to secure our inside network? In what circumstances?
Because always the users who are sitting inside the network, they are the most vulnerable.
Danish or Prasad,
They
I
have
think there is voice.
non-internet servers, services and all that. Yeah.
So for all internet service, you have your outside or edge firewall. But we are discussing on the LAN firewall. Why do you think there should be one LAN firewall? So these are all your networks. Okay, let's say this is your DB network.
So basically, you don't want to is to create a debility. So the thing is that you don't want you want to grant access to some services even from over the internet via VPN or maybe to some department, but you don't want to open everything. You want to make sure access is given by permission. So you need a firewall internally. Yeah.
Okay. See, what happens when you keep internal firewall is usually we make this as a gateway for all these networks. So let's say this network was on 192.10 dot so and so, which is on VLAN 10. Okay. Similar way, let's assume that this is another group of people whose network was on VLAN 20. So you know the concept of VLANs and the different networks and the gateways, right? We try to segregate each team from rest of the team or rest of the members, right? For security and for other reasons. Now, what happens if you would have kept a router in place of firewall? Router is set to pass the traffic implicitly. The word implicit allow, but you can deny if you write access list. Otherwise it is implicit allow. What happens if the users were thousands of users? Do you think you will write thousands of static ACL to block them? So there is where company will think of not keeping a router as a gateway, instead firewall as a gateway. Now the benefit of that is firewalls by default have a mechanism called implicit deny. All the traffics are denied. But when is the traffic allowed? When you will add the policy and you will say allow this source to this destination over on this port number. So until then, the firewall will act as implicit deny. So this is the reason when the users are in thousands, you don't go with router because that's a traditional method where you define static ACL, unblock, block it, remove, modify. You can go with the firewalls where you can easily manage this behavior. Okay, so this is the case when a firewall is plugged in the LAN network to isolate the connectivity or data between two different networks. I hope you got what is the purpose here, LAN firewalls. So come back, we were discussing about the difference. So I said that firewalls can be kept in the inside LAN. What about load balancer? Where do you think it's best fitted?
Outside.
Okay. I will also add one more point that firewall also is placed in the outside or edge, I can say. Okay, load balancer, you say outside. Why?
To handle multiple requests.
You know where these load balancers are kept in the enterprise? It is kept near to the servers, the internal servers. Okay, like your DB server, management server, whatever server it is, your HTML pages. So these servers are kept at the access layer. Agree? So LB is also
But
found.
Sagar,
in your LAN site.
Sagar, Anil here.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it depends on how the traffic is coming in, right? So let's assume you're hosting a website. I'm just saying an example, and the people who access it is like from internet, and in that case, obviously you need that load balancer on outside. I'm just guessing, or I'm just saying from my perspective. Or say you have an enterprise application and you have it in you have people accessing it from within the the enterprise or the organization, then obviously you would have it in the inside network. So it depends on how the traffic is coming in, correct?
Yes. So see what happens here is, let's say this is your LB. Okay. So on one side, you can configure the public URLs or VIP, and then you can also create private URLs or VIP, I can say. Okay. Backend is always connected to the internal servers. These servers are all internal facing. Now, if traffic is coming from cloud, most of the time what is done is there would be a firewall plugged, which is called as edge firewall. Okay, there would be edge firewall, or there can be a router as well, which will handle the NAT. So that will send the traffic to the public web, and the public webs will check the algorithm, and depending upon that, it will serve it to the servers. If it is private network, then the traffic is internally originated from a different user sitting in a different floors or different networks. Okay, so here LB, it can be in the distribution layer, which has direct connectivity to the internal servers. On the outside side, you will have it connected either to the edge router or edge firewalls, which connects to the cloud. Okay. So again, that's, let's say, similarity. So any dissimilarity between the two? Is there any dissimilarity?
Load balancer is not filtering traffic.
Actually, that is also similarity. You know how the filtering is done by both of the guys. So if you say filtering in the firewall, what we do, we apply the ACL policy. So I will say that this is my source, this is my destination, this is my port. You want to allow or deny, correct? Here, what we do, we create a VIP with port listening to 80. So let's say the VIP URL was this 211.1.1 on port 80. So anyone who is coming to this, they can only access the service 80. So it's also kind of a filtering that's enabled in the load balancing. Okay, traffic filtering. You can just create a web, let's say 211.1.1 with 443. You can do this. You can do on the same IP, you can also allow only port 80. Or let's say on the same IP, you want to allow 8443 port number or service. So behind this, you might have kept few servers. Behind this, you might have kept some server. Behind this, you might have kept some server. So this is also kind of a data filtering only. We don't allow all traffic to be served by all the servers. Okay, any other points that we can write here between the two? What about SSL encryption? What do you think SSL encryption in firewall and load balancing? So both are set to encrypt and decrypt, right? We upload the certificate which can encrypt the data that is sent between source and client, and it can also decrypt the traffic also and send it to server. See, I'll tell you in the load balancer what happens. Let's say these are servers. So your SSL certificates, you can host it on the LB. So any traffic which is coming on HTTPS SSL, that can get decrypted on the load balancer side. Load balancer will then see what traffic it is, then it will put the algorithm, and then it can send the traffic to the servers. Servers can also have its own SSL, but we don't do that because they are on very low memory. RAM and the CPU would be very less. So we don't encourage having SSL encryption, decryption on the servers. That is why we do it on the load balancer side. Same goes with your firewall. Firewall like Palo Alto, they have the concept of SSL encryption and decryption, where it can decrypt the traffic, the HTTPS traffic. It can see what the content is, and accordingly it can apply the filters, the policies it can apply. It can read the content, and then accordingly it can deny or allow as per your security policies. Okay, let's say this is also doable. Let's say the load balancing now. Do you think firewalls can load balance the traffic? Is firewall set to do the load balancing, or it's set for a different purpose?
I guess it cannot. Firewall cannot do load balance.
Yes, but again, there is a clause here. I mean, there is a clause here. Load balancing in terms of what? Let's say in terms of network. Then yes, there is a concept called policy-based forwarding, where you can say that this ISP to be taken via this interface of Palo, where you will override your normal behavior, basic behavior. Okay, so in terms of network, you can do the load balance. You can say that you share this network, this end users over on ISP2, not on ISP1, whereas this users, you take it via in this. You can try to do the load balancing depending upon your configuration. Okay, that is in terms of network, but here the actual LB or load balancing comes into picture. Okay, the main purpose of load balancing is in the enterprise when you have server 1, server 2, server 3. Okay, you are receiving 500 requests. So the load balancer should accordingly share the data traffic. So when you inspect them, you should see that all of them are utilizing the same bandwidth. Okay, so these are some concepts here in the load balancer. I'll give you one more closer view of load balancer. Since we are starting with load balancer in this, I want to focus more on load balancer. So let's say load balancer. Why the load balancer is important? Okay, let me give you one scenario. Let's say I have one server, and this server is responsible for payroll, employee attendance, might be some customer HTML services, some LDAP authentication services. So this server has all the configurations, and there is only one server. There is no standby for this. And all the users worldwide are continuously using this over on the internet. Okay, and the server has some resources. Let's say it is been assigned with 50 GB of hard disk, might be a 20 GB of RAM, might be some 4 CPUs. What happens when the traffic start increasing? On day 1, you have 10 traffic. Okay, it is manageable. On day 2, traffic increased to 100. Let's say that is also manageable by the server. And so on, you start receiving thousands of requests. Okay, lot of requests, TCP requests, lot of HTTP requests. Now what happens to the server? Server will have a heavy overhead. And the server gradually start degrading its services. Now user 1 will start complaining that my application is slow. I cannot access and I cannot perform my job. So let's say there is some other user who was accessing some other application. He will say that it is intermediately flapping, right? So this is all the circumstances that you see if you have this sort of approaches. And one fine day, the server can also go down and cause all the potential business loss for all the users. So this is why what we do is we have a concept of DNS, domain name server. So let's say if I have multiple users over on the cloud, so it will go to the cloud. Instead of going to the server, it will go to the DNS now, domain name server. So let's say I have xyz.com. So user is typing xyz.com. It will go to DNS. Within the DNS, there would be multiple servers mapped. So there would be like 192.168.1.1. So located at so and so. Now the new traffic comes. DNS will say, okay, the next server is available. You go and use it up. 192.168.1.2. Now there is one more person. Now let's say the DNS is resolving to another IP internally, so it will send to this. You know where the problem arises? The problem will arise when, let's say, this went down. Second server went down. So what happens is DNS is not notified. Your DNS is not notified that there is some outage on the second server. And the poor DNS, when there is another user who is trying to access, what DNS will do? DNS will try to forward it to the second server without knowing that it's down. So that's a disadvantage of only using DNS as well. So to resolve this issue, the load balancer is used in the enterprise. So what load balancer would have done is, if that was the case, let me just put it here. Okay, 3 servers. Let's say there is a connectivity to all 3. This is your load balancer. The client is accessing one of the service. Load balancer is forwarding first request. Then let's say you have another user that goes to second server. Then you have the third, it is going to the third. And then let's assume this went down. Now what happens is LB is gonna keep it tracked. It's called health monitor. In terms of FI, it's called as health monitor. As soon as one server goes down, this particular web, the package that you created, it will say that out of 3, 1 is down. So LB will not do the data served on that particular server until that server will start working back and shown in a green symbol. Okay, so now only the server 1 and server 2 is serving the users. So that is the benefit of using LB, which you don't get in the previous 2 scenarios. So if you have only one standalone server, after a few days, the server will get exhausted. If you use DNS, DNS will not keep a track. It will just can pass it on a round robin basis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but it will not have a tracking mechanism. Whereas here you have tracking mechanism, plus along with tracking mechanism, there is inceptions, there is policies that you can apply on the traffic. So let's say that some user is continuously accessing. So you can apply the profiles like HTTP optimization. Okay. There is also something called as iRules. iRules in the sense when you want to override the normal behavior. Let's say someone is trying to access via HTTP, because a user doesn't know the difference between HTTP and HTTPS, right? He is typing HTTP and saying 1.1.1. What LB will do, the load balancer will do, it will auto redirect to HTTPS. So such way you can add a lot of iRules as well. Okay, where you can come up with the override features. So guys, I have given you a basic on load balancer. Let me just show you some walk through our labs here. I will not take the lab because we are time for the next session. So I'll just show you a bit on the dashboard. So if you see, this is the lab.
Excuse me. Hello, please, before you continue, how much, sorry, how long is the session? Like this F5, how long was it? Was it 1 hour or 2 hours?
Okay, so let me tell you that. So F5 is 1 to 1 hour, and the next session Palo would be 1 to 1.3 hours. So it's total like 2 to 3 hours for someone who is sitting for both. Otherwise, it's for one who is going with only one at a time. Then this is the expected session time.
Okay, like 1 hour or 1.5 hours?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So if you guys see the screen, this is the F5 lab, which we would be doing. This is the load balancer. And behind that, we have servers. And to initiate the traffic, I'm using some test user whose traffic would be initiated from the cloud. So we can also keep a firewall. That is why I have kept that option of ASA, so that we can add security policy and then allow the traffic. If we want to focus more on LB, then we can just take it out aside and focus more on LB. Okay. So once you power on the LB, this is how the dashboard look like. On the very first day, the warning message would say that the license is expired or license is not been uploaded. So remember, for F5, you need a active license. Okay, so for LB, to start working on LB, your first task is license. Now, license is free or cost or paid. Yes, there is a free eval license, which is valid for 30 days. So tomorrow, you and me will walk through on this process of activation. So tomorrow, I'll show you step-by-step process. How do you activate the LB for the module LTM? So we have not come about the modules and all those things. I'll tell you in the next session. So big IP is the company name. It's a company name. F5 is the technology, or it's the product name. And within this product, there are multiple modules like LTM. LTM stands for load balancing or local traffic management. Then there is something called GTM, but the new name is now DNS for that. You have ASM, you have APM, okay, the different modules. But we will be focusing on the LTM part, the local traffic management, okay, where the load balancing part. And as I told you, without license, this is a useless box. I cannot send my traffic. Even if this will receive a traffic, it will not process. The data plane will not work until the license has been uploaded. So we will check that. I'll show you step-by-step guide to create the license, to upload on this panel. So once you upload the license, you will get some dossier code, which you have to upload on the FI website and get the actual certificate, which you need to upload it here. Okay, so this is something which you need to upload, and that gets activated. You get some certificate, you store it here in this part.
And Sagar, can you please explain a bit more details with LTM, with GTM and ASM? So in which scenario we use LTM, in which scenario we use GTM and
Okay.
ASM? So can you please explain a little bit details about that?
Okay, so these are different modules, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So see, these modules basically has different behavior. So let's say the GTM module or DNS module, which we call, these modules are kept in a global way. Let's say, I'll give one example. Let's say Indian user is continuously accessing some servers which were kept in US. Now this is a long path. So what the company or what the product owner does it, they deploy the GTMs or DNS, and they will see that if there is any other shorter servers that this traffic can be redirected. So that is why when you do a NS lookup, etc., you will see always your traffic is hitting the nearby servers or nearby servers kept in the data center. So there is a GTM globally deployed. Your traffic will hit that GTM. It will sense that the traffic is originated from India. Now the closest servers that can be interacted is, let's say, in Australia or somewhere in Singapore. It will push the traffic to that instead of sending it to US. But let's say if you don't have that, if that particular, let's say Facebook or Google, they don't have GTM. In that case, what happens? You will have to go through all the long path. It will, after all, impact the user, and the latency can also be an issue. Okay, so that is the purpose of GTM in real life. Whereas AFM, which stands for Firewall Manager, Application Firewall Manager, this is like your firewalls. Okay, if you have this module, then probably you do not need a traditional firewalls or something. This can be used for policies and all your stateful features, etc. Okay, this module is for your firewall feature. Then you have something called as ASM, right, which is Application Security Manager.
Sagar, you were writing something on the screen. So
sorry. Okay, it's not visible.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm just seeing the license. Okay, it's okay now. I can see now.
Yeah, so AFM is the firewall manager or module. ASM is the security manager, where you might have heard about WAF, web application firewalls, okay, related to your HTTP traffic, etc. And then there is something called APM, Application Policy Manager. So this is with respective to the performance and the cloud application. For that, you can use the policy manager, where you have access, visibility to all your rest of the configuration. So these are some of the modules, including LTM. I can say that at least 60 to 70% the LTM product is sold, the next popular module of FI or big IP could be DNS, another 30 or another 25%. And rest you have this. But most of the people, what they do is they go for alternatives. Might be they go with Palo or FortiGate or some other technology. Okay, but yeah, there are certain companies who still prefer going with other modules. Okay. So these are some basic intro on FI, big IP, LTM module. Tomorrow I will also talk a little bit on the certification part. I'll discuss about the license activation. And let's onboard those servers on F5 LTM module. Okay, so we need to do VLAN, self IP. So these are some things that we will check tomorrow. So guys, any doubt or any question for me before I hand over it to the PCNSE expert who will take the Palo session? Any question with the syllabus, start date, etc.? So we are starting the batch. It's like day 1 today. Okay. Today is the day 1, tomorrow would be day 2. And then we meet up in the next session on next Saturday. So it's a weekend batch. So let me just show you that slide. So see this is a Saturday Sunday batch. So after today's session, we meet up tomorrow on the same time, and then it would be every weekend, Saturday, Sunday only. So how many of you have from our enrolled F5 batch or firewall mastery batch? Krishna, I think you are from our enrolled batch, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So those who guys have not enrolled, we have put up the contact details along with the syllabus copy. You can probably go once and check the syllabus and the rest of the things. Let me also once.
Sorry, what did you say we need to do? What are you pasting here? What do we need to do?
You don't have to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just telling those people who have not enrolled. Are you enrolled to the batch, right?
Yes, I'm enrolled to the batch. Yeah. Okay.
So those guys who are not enrolled to the batch, so you guys can see the syllabus copy put up for all the module, all the lab designs are kept, and you can contact our backend for the enrollment process. Okay. All right. So any other doubt with respective to lab or course content or anything? Okay, so I'll take it all as good. So Azad would be the next trainer who will go through the Palo Alto session. So Azad, you there in the meeting?
Hey Sagar, yes, I just joined in 10 minutes ago.
Okay. So guys, Azad is PCNSE certified trainer and he's having 7+ year experience in the network security. So Azad, yeah, I'll pass on the share role to you. You can present your screen.
Sagar.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can we also recap this session? Is there any option to recap this session?
Yeah, we will do the recap session once the log session starts from the next week. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So today is just open to the regular crowd. So from next session, it will be logged and we will have all the recap and we will have a 10 to 15 minutes break before the next session starts. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Sagar, can I take over?
Thank you, Sagar.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Give me 1 minute. Azad, can you share your screen now?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. I'm going to use most of the, I'm going to use whiteboard for most of the time today. So I'll try to share my whiteboard. Give me 1 second. Okay, looks like I can't share my whiteboard. I'll try to share the screen itself. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my whiteboard?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sagar, are we good? Can I start?
Yeah, Azad, go ahead.
Okay. So I just joined in. Hello guys, hello everyone, and welcome for the Firewall Mastery and F5 LTM course. Sagar spent, I guess, almost an hour and 10 minutes. So I will just be, I'm just planning to have a half an hour to 40-minute session maximum, so that you understand what this course of Palo Alto is going to be and what you can expect out of the course when you go out of this batch completing this course, right? So talking about what this course is going to be about, I guess Sagar covered most of the part on what a firewall would do and how is it different in using a firewall and compared to a load balancer. So we're going to just talk about the comparison between the different flavors of firewall and how firewall emerged, starting from a layer 4 device, PIX or an ASA, to evolving into an application inspection device. So, and what are the competitors and how Palo Alto is a leader in the market, and why we say Palo Alto is a leader in the market, and so on and so forth, right? So first, let's start with a checklist of what we're going to see in a couple of minutes, and then we'll start going through one by one. And finally, I'll be showing you the dashboard of the Palo Alto, which I've already started in my lab, on how the dashboard is going to look like and what all we will be covering. Yeah. So if you have any questions about whatever I'm talking about here throughout the session, you can always feel free to ask in the chat, or you could unmute at the end of the session where it will be open for question and answers, right? All right. So
today is this first class of Palo Alto, or you have already taken?
No, this is the first class for the batch itself. So this is going to be an introduction, and we will be going through this over again from the next week, starting from the next week. So I don't have to worry. This is the first session, and this will again be sort of covered in a brief in the next week as well. Next week is the official week for the enrolled students. This is open for common audience as well, as Sagar said. Okay, so to get started with, we will first talk about what a Palo Alto is, what a Palo Alto does, and we will talk about it. Talk about the competitors, and why PA should be considered. Okay, and its features, obviously. Maybe before features, we could talk about its deployment methods and features, a very high level of the packet flow. So I'm not going to go into technical details of the packet flow, which will be covered extensively in the next week's session. I will just be showing you how a packet flow would happen on Palo Alto and what are the important features, which I would cover in briefly about 4 to 5 minutes time, wherein when we talk about technical details of it, it's going to take an hour of time to cover everything in detail. So, and then we will go about walking through the dashboard. That means we will see how a GUI of Palo Alto will look like, right? So So Sagar must have mentioned as I joined the session, he was talking about, I'll just try to make a comparison of what happened and what you were hearing through Sagar talking, so that you can compare the, we can go with the flow on what I'm talking about, right? So Sagar was talking about how a layer 4 firewall or a router or a load balancer would behave. So when you talk about a layer 4 firewall, let me draw a diagram so that you can understand better. Just give me 1 sec. So let's say we have a user here, and you have a Palo Alto box or any firewall you may consider, right? And let's say you have an internet cloud here, right? And let's imagine everything is connected. This user connecting to the inside of the firewall and this one to the outside. So when you talk about a user, we'll consider this as any firewall. So in whatever context I'm talking about, we can consider this as a firewall or a router or layer 4 firewall or layer 7 firewall. So whatever I'm using it for comparison, we would consider this as one. And let's consider this as an internet server that's there on the internet, right? Okay, so let's imagine that this user is going out to reach somewhere in the internet. Okay, so when this guy is sitting in between is not a firewall but a router. Let's consider a router as an example that's sitting in the edge of the internet between the user and the private and the public network. So this will do filtering based on, by default, it doesn't do any filtering. It only does routing. It routes the traffic from, if in case the route is available, it routes the traffic from inside to outside, and the traffic can easily go in and out without any issues. There is no concept of connections. There is no concept of filtering unless you do a filtering. And if at all you do a filtering, with respect to router, what the filtering would do, it does just IP filtering, right? So it just does filtering based on IPs. So let's consider you have a layer 4 firewall. In this case, presumably NASA. Okay. So when you have an ASA in place here, what this does is, one thing it does is it does IP filtering. It inspects layer 4, which is if it's a TCP or a UDP, it inspects the port number. It does port filtering, so we could filter the traffic based upon source and destination IP and source and destination port, right? Presumably a destination port. So if the traffic is from the user, it will be a random port. So when he goes out to the destination, you could do destination port filtering. So you could allow or deny or inspect the traffic based upon the destination filtering, the destination port number, right? So let's also consider this is a firewall, which is a next generation device. So I will also talk about the firewall as an next generation device and how the competitors are competing with the Palo Alto and why Palo Alto is better than the odds, right? So when you talk about a next generation firewall, it does same thing what a router does. It does the same, it does everything that a layer 4 firewall could do, that an ASA could do. Like it does IP filtering, IP based. It does layer 4. It does up to layer 7. So it filters traffic up to application layer. So what does this mean? Is that it finds out who is the what is the source IP of the user, and if he is interacting with the AD, if the firewall is interacting with the AD, it also sees what is the username of him. So if a user ID is integrated with the firewall, so you could filter traffic based upon the user's name or domain. You could also filter the traffic based upon the application signatures. So firewall has something called application signatures. Let's say the user is trying to reach Facebook, or he's trying to reach any website that is based out of business or economy. So it will categorize the application with the help of its signatures and make sure he's accessing an application which is not threat-free. It also flags the application based on criticality 1 through 4. So if it is more critical, it flags it as criticality 1. If it is less critical, it flags it as criticality 4. That's a common application that a user could use. So we could filter based upon the category of application. So which is not available with a router, which is not available with any L4 layer 4 filtering firewall. That is a firewall which does inspection based upon layer 4, or a router, or a load balancer, or any of the security device. And as Sagar was also talking about web application filter. So here in this case, this web application filter does filtering based on layer 7 application, but it doesn't do everything that a firewall could do. So firewall is one for all the features, one device for all features, where you could do pretty much most of the security device could do what most of the devices could do in one single device, right? So this is about a common difference that you could see between different flavors of firewall or any L3 device. So while talking about competitors, you have FortiGate, you have Cisco, you have Checkpoint. So comparing all this in multiple aspects, I would say Palo Alto gets the edge because of many different reasons. So let's try to compare any two firewalls. So let's say we're comparing based on cost, we're comparing based on the features, we're comparing based on the support. That's very important. We're comparing the devices based upon the let's say how the presence looks like. So let's say how the presence of Panorama in terms of Palo Alto, or FortiManager in terms of FortiGate. So while comparing all of this, let's say we'll compare FortiGate and Palo Alto. So when you compare cost, so the cost is not actually based on, so what a layman would think is the cost is actually based on the actual hardware, but actually the cost is based on how many meg of data that the device is actually protecting. So if it's actually protecting 2 meg of data, what is the cost? And if it's actually protecting more than that, what is the cost of that firewall? So maximum how much it could protect. So it's basically FortiGate takes the edge here. Is a little cheaper than PA, but on all the 3 features that I mentioned below, Palo Alto takes the edge. So in terms of features, few features, just because Palo Alto has been introduced in FortiGate as well, but it didn't, I would say it didn't scale well with FortiGate. For example, they have a feature of ZTP where you're going to deploy a new firewall, and that is supposed to join the Panorama, where Panorama is a centralized device manager where you manage all the devices in your corporate network on a single device. So it's like a zero touch provisioning where you don't have to do anything, but just to get the firewall that you are deploying into a network, and it's going to directly join the Panorama device by itself. after you give it an IP, or if it gets an IP from DHCP, well and good. So once the firewall has an IP, it directly gets the connectivity to Panorama, joins the Panorama, and gets all the basic config, that is the global config that a Panorama has for all the devices into it. So it's good to go. So only the definitive configs that you wanted to provide for that device is enough for you to be configured. So you don't have to actually configure the whole firewall. Instead, the ZTP does it for you. So this feature is also available in FortiGate, but in my experience, it doesn't scale well. There are I personally experienced a lot of bugs with it when I used FortiManager. So that's about an edge with Palo Alto. In terms of support and the ratings, definitely Palo Alto is way ahead of FortiGate. So I will tell Palo Alto here. And with the look and feel itself, Palo Alto is very well presented. So that's pretty much very important, where if you see FortiGate, it looks, for me, it looks a little too much of exaggerating, where you see a lot of colors in it, where you get a little confused on the same with Checkpoint as well. So in that also, I give it for Palo Alto. So this doesn't mean that FortiGate is bad. They are competitors, but if you consider the better security functionality and better support and better features, I would say go for Palo Alto. So in other cases, if you consider cost, many companies are concerned about cost as a first priority, so they go for FortiGate because they are cost effective, and also they get most of the features that Palo Alto provides, with here or there some compromises. But if that's okay for them, they go with FortiGate. But if we need to have utmost security with good support, everything up to the mark, I would say Palo Alto to go for. Right?
I have one question, Ajad.
Yes.
Is this our firewall or platform dependent, or we can also configure it in a VM?
That's what I'm going to talk about next, about the deployment features. So I'll come back to you on that. But probably explaining about deployment methods will answer your question. So your question is whether all the firewalls are good to deploy in cloud or in VM based methodology, right?
No, means suppose that we are using Palo Alto firewall. So that we need a hardware box from Palo Alto, or we can also just configure in some hypervisor.
Yes, we do have a method. We do have a functionality with Palo Alto where it provides a VM-based support. So you could deploy it in AWS, inside AWS, which is again a VM, or you could have your own hypervisor. So deploy Palo Alto, download a software which is VM-based specific for Palo Alto, and then you could deploy a VM-based firewall, and hardware as well, as you said, is available.
Thank you.
Yeah. So deployment methods. So first thing you should consider is what's your scale, which means what your company, how big is your company, and what type of firewall you should choose, type or model. And you should also consider what type of deployment. So if your company is just having 10 locations, it's not pretty much necessary for you to deploy a Panorama-based Palo Alto infrastructure where you have a specific device called Panorama and you manage all the devices within that. Let's say you have only 5 to 6 locations you manage, and let's say only 5 to 6 locations are Palo Alto-based, rest are other firewall-based. So you don't really have to spend on a Panorama, get a license for it, and probably make all the firewalls join to it and manage everything on a single device. But in the case of more than 10 devices or so, it's always recommended to have a Panorama based device, so that you manage all the 10 network devices or the firewall devices within a single administrative control. Right? It depends upon how big your network is or how small your network is, and also considering the model number or hardware or VM. So first I'll say what are all available. So you have hardware based, you have You can deploy in VM based as well, and you could also deploy, again, that's a VM based firewall in AWS cloud or Azure or GCP, so whatever cloud platform that you're using. So in this, you got to choose a model based upon how big your network is, or for a specific location, how many connections you would see through from the user side towards internet, or from the internet towards user side. So depending upon the connection numbers, or the number of users that are actively going to use the network, you can scale this from using Palo Alto 200 device. There is a device for Palo Alto 500, and there is 440. And you start with 2K, 3K, 5K, and 7K. So when you say I'm sorry about this. So when you say 2K, 3K, 5K, 7K, this is mostly used within a data center locations, whereas Palo Alto 200, 500, and we also have 800. So these are all used in small or big offices, so medium-sized offices. So when you start from 2K, 3K, especially from 3K devices, 5K and 7K, you use this presumably inside the data center, because most of the traffic from the user side would hit this data center for accessing some critical services. So depending on how many data centers you have, how many big offices you have, how many medium scale offices you have, how many small offices where only 50 or 60 employees are working, you should be able to choose based upon the number of connections, number of rules, number of NAT rules that the firewall model would support. So you could always go inside Palo Alto's website and check its data sheet for each model, and you should be able to choose. Let's say currently there are 60 users and you're expecting it to be 150 to 200 users. You could go for PA 500, PA 800, and for data centers you could choose between any of these firewall depending on the number of connections or security rules it can support. All right, and pretty much that's about the deployment methods. So next I said I will talk about a packet flow of Palo Alto, where I said I will just be going through very high level basics of it. So I'll just stop sharing the screen and probably will share my packet flow diagram. Just give me 1 second. So until then, if you have any questions, you could always unmute and ask me by the time I bring up the diagram. No questions so far? Okay, let me share my screen for you. Okay, I hope you could see my screen again clearly.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thanks. So I should have a high definition view of this. Here it is. So I'll just talk about the phases that this involves and what exactly it does, which will just take about 5 minutes of your time. I don't want to get into technical details of it, so that I also understand you're sitting for like 2 hours or so. So I just want to keep it short. Not that I don't want to give you more clarity on this. We'll definitely be going through this in detail when we start our session next week, full-fledged. So I hope you could see this clearly. So when I'll just minimize a little bit so that you could see all the stages. Yeah. So if you see any networking device, any L3 network device would have an ingress and egress stage that's completely similar to what a router would do, with a little differences where it does some IPsec level encryption if it is an IPsec tunnel based packet that it sees, and then the same is being encrypted. So first here the IPsec packet has to be inspected, so it decrypts it and then encrypts it back in the egress stage. So ingress and egress pretty much similar to what a router would do. It takes in the layer 2 layer 3 packet and checks if there is an error with respect to layer 2, layer 3, layer 4 information. If no, it proceeds, or else it discards the packet and then comes down to this stage, which is pretty much very important, where we see something called fast path or slow path and content inspection, application identification. So one more difference I should have told you was the Palo Alto's ability to do just give me 1 second. I'll just take up a pen for me. Okay, so one thing that the Palo Alto would do different from the other devices is it has the ability to do single processing, parallel processing for all the inspection that it does here. Let's say I'm highlighting 3 things here: content inspection, application ID, and fast path or slow path. So either of these 2 is true in case of the packet flow. Let's say it does fast path or it does slow path or both. So let's say when the packet comes from ingress stage and reaches fast path, when the session is already available in the firewall, let's say it's an older session used by the user, it doesn't do slow path. So slow path is only for the new session. And if it's a new session, slow path is for forming a new session. So that's what you see here, right? So in slow path, what it does is, I'll tell you in short, where it checks for the routing and it checks for the egress interface basically by checking the routing, and it checks if there is any NAT applicable for this traffic. And if it checks the security policy and allow or deny, in this case, it checks only the security policy for 6 tuple, where source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port. And based upon that, it creates a session if everything goes through, right? And when the session is already available, it's an older session. It doesn't go through slow path. It just goes through fast path and then follows along. So in the fast path, I wanted to stop you here for talking about something called SP3. So this is the architecture that basically Palo Alto says that it offers for faster progression of the packet or faster processing of packet, where it does all this inspection here. SSL decryption may be it may be content inspection, or it may be application identification. It does everything in a parallel way. So packet comes in, there are 3 engines that would be running: routing engine, the firewall engine, content inspection engine, application ID engine. Everything will be passed parallelly, and then everything will be combined together and will go to egress stage. So this is how it works. So since it does everything in a parallel manner, the quicker the processing is going to be, right? So I was talking about the fast path. Here in the fast path, here it looked up for the NAT policy. It checks whether the NAT policy is there. Here it implements the NAT, and it checks if there is an SSL proxy to be decrypted, where it checks it when it finally identifies the application. So that you see here. Just give me 1 sec. Okay. Right. So when you come to content ID, it does all the stuff that takes care of antivirus. Only if the content ID is applicable, there is a configuration for content ID, it does that, or else it doesn't. So when you talk about, just give me 1 sec. So when you talk about content ID, it does antivirus filtering, it does URL inspection, it does a file blocking if a specific file extension is configured to be blocked. It does anti-spyware profiling. It also does wildfire profiling. I'll talk about wildfire extensively tomorrow. It's one of the features that Palo Alto does it very well for identifying phishing attacks or any type of antivirus attacks. So all those security profiles are inspected here in content inspection. And as I said, in the application ID, it identifies the application based upon the signatures that Palo Alto has within its Palo Alto cloud in the internet, right? So after consolidating everything, identifying the application, if the identified application is SSL or SSH, it goes back, does the decryption if applicable. If we have configured a decryption policy, it does a decryption and then follows along with content ID and comes down to egress stage and egresses the packet out. So there are 4 stages where it does ingress, it goes to fast path or slow path, creates a session if it's not already created, if it's a new session, if it's already has a session, goes to slow path, does the NAT, comes to application ID and content ID, processes that, does SSL encryption or decryption if applicable, and then goes down to egress, right? So this is the high level of how a Palo Alto packet flow would look like. We will go into more details of how it does all this with the example of a lab that I might show you in the next week when the class session actually starts. So, and also I'll just talk about the lab that we will be looking into. So this is the high level about the lab. I'll try to show you that. So we will just be trying to work out with 3 locations, considering 3 locations are available and all connected to internet. We'll try to form an IPsec between these 2, this and this and this and this. We'll try to do HA for one of the locations, considering this is a critical location, doesn't have to have any downtime. We also would do path monitoring stuff. We also would do almost all the features that Palo Alto would offer. We'll try to implement everything starting next week. I'm just left with showing you the dashboard today. We'll just take a couple of minutes after I log in. What was the IP again? 30194. So by default, the password would be admin and admin. Looks like I've already changed it. Let me try this. Okay. So by default, it's going to be admin and admin. And when you try to log in, the new model firewalls is going to ask you to change the password right away before you get in. So this time I've changed the password already, so I had to type the password that I've changed. So here we go. So this is a dashboard where you get to see so many informations. What you see right here is the widgets that we have already selected. So this one says who all have logged in, and the admin user, that is me, has just logged in with which IP address, and it's a web session or a CLI session, when the session starts, and how long he has been idle, right? So currently I'm using, so idle time is 0. And if there is any data passing through, there will be data logs. System logs are specific to the firewall, what is happening within the firewall. Let's say there is something regards to IPsec going down, and the user logs in, he logs out, or the authentication failed for the user. So everything regarding the firewalls happening will be showed down in the system logs. So where do you see the system logs? On the other side, it's going to be on the monitor tab, which we'll see in some time. So general information about the firewall, like serial number, version, IP address, name of the device, right? And the resources, management and data plane. So management plane, as you know, is for management traffic. Data plane is for the user's traffic. Sessions. So how many sessions are totally active, which is 0. Nothing is on the firewall, obviously. Pretty much that's it. And you also have few other widgets that you could open, like top applications being used, high risk applications being used, and under systems you could see the interface and their status. If you get to see that, 2 interfaces are already active. Looks like it's already been configured with something. So you could also see if the firewall is configured with HA. In this case, it's not. And this is again a graphical view of what all the firewall goes through, or what network traffic is going through the firewall, threat activity. Right now, you will not see anything because there is nothing configured on the device. I'm just trying to show you what all is there. And under monitor, you get to see all the logs. So I said we could do URL filtering. So if you want to filter the traffic based upon a specific URL where that URL is actually resolving to more than an IP, you could not actually do a traffic filtering by filtering the destination IP as a specific IP, right? So if you are resolving a Google's DNS, google.com, it could resolve to 8 to 9 IPs on your PC. So you will not be able to, filter that using an IP address. So in that case, you could do an URL filtering, go and try to filter it with the URL name of the URL. For this, obviously, you should have a license. We'll talk about licenses tomorrow and what features you need a license and what is freely available for the firewall to use, and so on and so forth. Wildfire, again, tomorrow. I'll talk extensively. These are all the logs that you could see with respect to Wildfire. And other important stuff regarding system logs. I said, so you get to see something on system logs, like I have logged in, I have accessed the monitor tab. So what all have happened? So this firewall is getting an IP from the local DHCP server. So it says that I'm getting an IP from the DHCP server. And one more important thing is packet capture. So you could do a packet capture and take up a PCAP file and view the captures here. Session browser, another important tab where you could see what all sessions are going through the firewall. So you could see forward and reverse traffic and what IP the source and destination is taking up when there is a forward traffic, and for the same session, what reverse traffic IPs are. So reports. So you could take reports based on the applications. So all the parameters here, you could generate a report and probably generate a timer for the report to be generated, so that if you find an issue and you got to take extensive logs, this tab would help you. Policies, security policy, NAT policy, QoS, policy-based forwarding, decryption policy for SSL and SSH decryption, tunnel inspection. So what's happening inside the tunnel, decrypt the tunnel and inspect. Application override, or this is like your custom application builder, authentication and DOS protection profile. Objects, pretty much whoever is used the firewall, any firewall before, you could have known to use address objects, address groups. This is grouping different address objects, and application group, service group. These are port numbers, service port numbers, tags used for description, and many more. We'll see extensively about tags later. And all other features I was talking about, security profiles here, antivirus, anti-spyware, file blocking, URL filtering, Wildfire, data filtering, so on and so forth. So under network, it's general networking, like configuring routing, IPsec tunnel, DNS, DHCP, zones, interfaces, and everything regarding IPsec here, zone protection and QoS profiles here. And under device, it's all about what a firewall needs. So if firewall needs a certificate, you configure a certificate. And if user needs a certificate from the firewall, that also comes under here. And what are the administrators that you could configure who can access the firewall, and where you configure a management interface. Operation tab, you do a backup stuff, take backup, take the session state of the device state of the firewall. Services, so by default, if I could go to customize, there is something called service route where you get to see all the services are by default using management interface. You could customize this. And for reaching internet, what service the firewall should use, that can be defined here. And the management interface config, content ID, wildfire. So enabling the feature. So this is the firewall and you're doing specific configs with respect to the firewall on the device tab. So this is not a wildfire configuration. This is just saying I'm enabling wildfire. This is saying I'm enabling content ID. So this is saying I'm enabling service route DNS for the firewall, right? So this is where you commit the configuration. Without committing the configuration like a Cisco router or ASA, you don't get to use the configs actively. Only when you commit, and if it's successful, the configs are supposed to be in the firewall for you to use. That's pretty much an overview. I see someone pinging me somewhere. SEEP, can you elaborate what is a CEP? I didn't get you. Can you unmute yourself? Ajay? Hello, can you hear me? Ajay, can you unmute yourself and elaborate a question? Otherwise, guys, I'm done for the today's demo session. You could ask your questions by unmuting yourself if you have anything.
Ajay, does we need firewall when we are using IPsec? Because IPsec is already secure channel, right?
Yes. So are you asking if you need an IPsec tunnel if you're using a firewall? Is it?
No. When I'm using a IPsec connection, does we need a firewall there?
So you are trying to ask, let me understand your question again clearly. So you're forming an IPsec tunnel between two routers.
Yeah.
So you are asking me whether you need a firewall in between.
Yes.
Okay. In that case, no, I would say no, because IPsec encrypts the traffic. You are right. But what about other traffic that goes to internet for the users?
Okay, understood.
So that is unencrypted and that has threat involved in it, right? So anyone can breach through and access your internal network. So in that case, yeah, firewall also can do IPsec. So instead of having a router and doing an IPsec and then having a firewall, if your bandwidth of using number of tunnels are not more, let's say your firewall can probably handle 2K firewall can handle about more than 30 IPsec without any problem, 40 IPsec without any problem. I've seen that. So in that case, you could easily use a firewall to form an IPsec with the other side. May be any vendor here. So on the other side, it can be an ASA or a FortiGate or a checkpoint. Doesn't matter. You could easily form an IPsec tunnel and also preserve the users from accessing untrusted network.
All right.
Okay. Ajay, is that Ajay who asked me the question? Just give me a second. Any other questions, guys? Yes, we have an option to generate a certificate on the, let me show you that. So SCEP is a protocol itself, as you see here. So you have an option to do an SCEP here, as you said. So are you asking me whether you have an option to use SCEP or you are asking about the SCEP itself?
Sorry, can you hear me right now?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, you can see under the third option, you will see the SEEP.
Yes, yeah.
So where we can use that one? Because I was using for something in Cisco devices to get enroll to get search directly from the window machine. So is that
Mhm.
possible to have the search from the Palo Alto firewall?
Yes, it is. So as you see, you have an option here. So SEP is actually a protocol where it's actually a feature, I would say. So it's a simple certificate enrollment protocol where you, in terms of Palo Alto, you could use it with Global Protect, or you can create an SEP profile as you see here. You can add a profile here, providing all the information. And
Okay.
you could use this with Global Protect. That is a VPN feature that you have with Palo Alto to assign client certificate to each Global Protect user. Like say each user who is using Global Protect, you could authenticate that connection, make the user trust that connection using this SEP protocol.
Okay. Thank you. And I joined late, but I do have a different question for the Cisco networks, especially with the Ansible. Is it possible to okay, I have a situation where I have to configure in range of the interfaces on Cisco devices. So Ansible does support anything to select the range, or interface by interface I have to make a changes in a configuration.
And with respect to Ansible, I hope Sagar would be the best person to answer. So he
Yes.
uses he actually takes the batch for the automation stuff. So it's better you
Okay.
ask Sagar. Probably next week he
Sure.
should be available for your load balancer batch.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry that I couldn't answer that, but
No, that's why I joined late, so I don't know what's
yeah,
going on
probably
here.
if you would have joined on time, I think Sagar would be available, would have been available. He was a person who took 1 hour of session for load balancer. So he would have answered you the question. That should be a support. If the Cisco is the is having a option to use a range of interfaces, there should be a support in Ansible as well. So you know that Ansible uses something called Galaxy. There should be something with Cisco and Ansible on the Galaxy thing to utilize this feature, but what exactly it is and what exact feature it is, or what exactly it is about, you could check with Sagar. He should
Okay,
be
nice.
better person to answer. He
Yeah.
actively handles Ansible and automations. Yeah.
Okay. Basically, I work as a network for mostly taking care of automation, so that's why.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no problem. Guys, you have any more questions to be dealt with, or else we'll close up the session and we'll see you tomorrow.
So the firewall filter the traffic for both direction for incoming and outgoing. Am I right?
Yes, so I didn't talk about this because Sagar should have spoken about stateless or stateful. If he doesn't, I can explain you. So let's consider this is a firewall. I hope you can see my screen now. So a user is, let's say, coming from here to reach somewhere on internet. So you could think about this to be a connection. So TCP connection or a session, right? So let's say it is a TCP session. You send a traffic as a user from your PC towards firewall through the internet. When the traffic is returned to you for your connection, there is no need of any rule to be placed on the firewall. So that's again a difference between a firewall and a router. So if you say a router, you need to have a bidirectional traffic, forward and reverse, right? Applied as an ACL if you are using an ACL, or else it's by default allowed for all this TCP and UDP sessions and ICMP. If there is a routing in place and if there is no filtering configured on router, you will be able to access anything and everything through the router, right?
Right.
In case of firewall, you just have to make sure, let's say you are accessing a website called, let's say our website, networkjourney.com. So by default, when a traffic hits the firewall, it checks for source and destination zone. Okay. So if source and destination zones are different, that is intra-zone traffic, the firewall by default denies the traffic if there is no policy that's allowing it. If it is from the same zone, if the user is in the zone called trust, trying to access some server in the zone called the same trust zone, he doesn't need to have anything special on the firewall to allow this traffic unless there is a rule that says this IP to this IP.
Are you presenting something there?
Am I not presenting?
No.
Okay, just give me 1 second. So let me stop my screen and share it again. I was thinking that I am presenting, but looks like you are not able to see anything. Okay, am I clear now? Is it clear?
I'm still seeing the Palo Alto is screen here.
Okay. Just give me a second. Let me try to take my whiteboard in this case. Anyways, I've done explaining the. Okay, can you see my whiteboard now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's say there is a firewall here. So only when you want your traffic from one zone to another to traverse through, you need a rule. That's about the security policy you want to configure. About the connections you asked me, when you're trying to access something in the internet, only thing you should do is from this IP towards networkjourney.com, you make sure that the traffic is allowed. The return traffic, when the networkjourney.com replies to this user, it's automatically allowed because the session is recorded on the firewall on the session table, and it knows that this return traffic is for this specific session. So the session ID may be 1214. There is an ID for each session that's recorded on the firewall. So let's imagine the session ID is 1214, and the firewall will know if there is a return traffic for the same session from the networkjourney.com towards the PC. It should know that it's from 1214 and the return traffic is this, and it should allow it back. You don't need to have anything specific for the return traffic, wherein you're accessing a server here, and the server is trying to initiate a connection itself towards the user.
All right.
This is a all new session. It's not a response for your user session. In that case, traffic from server to user is necessary, or whatever it may be. It may be another server here, and this guy is trying to access this guy, and it's a bidirectional traffic. So he's also trying to put in some data into this, and he gets to respond to this, like say acknowledgement or something, and he also wants to send some data to this server. So likewise, you want bidirectional traffic. So for any specific session, there no need of any internet traffic return traffic for you to configure. But if the session is getting initiated from the other side towards the inside zone, doesn't matter. You should need a rule to be configured. So it depends upon who is initiating the traffic, right?
All right.
It's not that you're coming from outside. You don't need a rule. So either way, you need a rule only when the session is initiated from one side and going to the other side. That for that direction, you should specify a rule. For that specific traffic, the return traffic should be by default allowed. But if the other side also is initiating the connection, you should make sure that is also allowed, right?
So it means when we are requesting a new session,
yes,
so whether
right.
it's from LAN side or from outside, the
yes,
rule
that's
will
correct.
be checked, right?
So it's pretty simple. You try to send some data to this server, and this server sends you the data that you're requesting. For this traffic, the traffic flow on the firewall that's to be allowed is this. The direction is this. So you got to allow from this IP to this IP for whatever port that you're accessing this server on. You got to allow that port or application. This is for this traffic. So let's say this server also wants to request some data to this guy. It's a new session, right? This is session 1 and this is session 2. So this session is from point A to point B, and the point B is responding to point A. So this is completely done. This session is completely done.
Okay.
So you are trying to initiate a new session from point B to A, requesting some data from A towards B. So A responds with that data. So in this case, you got to make sure you allow traffic this way. And the return traffic by default should be allowed. That doesn't need any rule. So you got to see which direction the traffic is getting started or initiated. Accordingly, you should make sure the traffic is there. The security policy is there or NAT is there if needed. Okay.
Okay.
So any further questions? And one more thing that I forgot to tell you. So many people might be having a question like you got to join 4 firewalls and you got to join for one load balancer session. Let me join for one and then see through that later. It's as Sagar was talking, Sagar should have told you, but from my point of view, the course itself is designed in such a way that you will be able to relate each and everything that's happening from one course towards the another. Let's say today Sagar was talking about the session that we had with load balancer, where he spoke about how it differs from the firewall to a router to a load balancer. And I continued with that towards, that's the reason I joined earlier, to make sure I give you some highlights about what Sagar was talking about and then follow along with it so that you will feel engaged about the course itself. So that's how it has been designed. So it will be pretty easy for each and everyone who joins in for multiple flavors of firewall, where you get to understand each and everything without having any prior knowledge to any firewall concept. So it's basic networking that you do. On top of that, you do security. That's how you should understand. So it's not a specific technology you're learning. It's a security feature you already know. You're going to learn how to implement it on this flavor, right? So you know what is antivirus, you know what is URL. You are filtering based upon URL, in the sense you got to know how you do it. So otherwise, you already know that this security feature is in existence. You know what is a certificate. So combined to all the security platforms available in the market, was available in the market earlier, this next generation firewall is going to do each and everything on a single box. So you're going to just compile your knowledge on security and then put onto a single device, and you will be trying to understand how you implement this on the device. So that's how you should see through how this course would scale up on. So it'll be really interesting to know about how each flavor works. So if you keep everything line by line and study everything in a single parallel way, you will be able to easily compare how one differs from another. So that's my point of view. So you don't have to think about you're joining 3 to 4 firewalls at a start and you won't be able to follow or nothing like that. It will be designed in a way that you'll be able to follow each and everything, and you'll be able to relate each and everything. So if you're configuring IPsec here, you will be learning how to do it over there. So since it's all in GUI, it's an added advantage that once you see the screen, it's not a CLI that you should remember commands. It's just you got to go and click on a tab, and you will be calling back all the stuff that you have studied. So it's not going to be something difficult to follow along. So I'm trying to say it's going to be a good opportunity for you to parallelize everything and see how one differs from another by joining this mastery program, right?
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is a completely GUI application based, right?
You have CLI too, but you can use CLI when GUI is not helping you, or
Okay.
if you see some buggy behavior. Let's say you have worked with this firewall quite some time and you're seeing that something is not happening as expected. You can, for accurate data, you could go to CLI and check if the things you're seeing is actually true, and you can open a case with Palo Alto. So other than that, I guess most of the stuffs you see on GUI, I mean, most of the features that's available in Palo Alto can be done through GUI itself. It's nothing that you couldn't do on a GUI so that you could go for a CLI. It's not a dependency perspective, but you could do everything on CLI and GUI. GUI being the easier way and in human interactive way. So I prefer GUI most of the time. We will also be seeing through an extensive CLI session. Then and there, when I complete a topic, I'll try to cover what you could do with the CLI for that specific concept, so you understand how CLI also works.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no further questions, we can wind up.
Yeah, just let me know. Suppose
Yes.
that my session is breaked
Okay.
due to some network problem. So you are recording this session. So you are keeping this session somewhere. So later I can go and
Yeah.
check it.
Yeah, you are right. So this will be recorded in our cloud. So this recordings will be put up in all platforms that we are available. A network journey is available. That is LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever the social platforms that we are available, it should be posted. And you should also be getting the recordings from the backend team. I'm not sure if the enrolled students are in a WhatsApp group already. That's the way of doing it. So you should have your videos posted on all the platforms. So whichever platforms you got to know network journey from, you could go to YouTube or LinkedIn, wherever you go, you should have your recordings posted there from our official page. So you can go ahead and check it out. This should be available. It doesn't matter, if something breaks your session suddenly and you get to lose your recording. It's recorded on the cloud and you can very well go and check the videos out later.
All right. In your onboarding portal, right?
Yeah, onboarding portal or LinkedIn or YouTube, it should be there. Pretty much tomorrow or today night, anytime, they should be able to upload it.
All right.
Okay. All right. I guess we are good to close the session today if we don't have any further questions. Once again, thanks everyone for joining. I welcome you all for this mastery program. I hope you get most out of this this course at the end of the course. So I'm looking forward to see you next week. And obviously we have another session tomorrow for the demo.
At 7:30. Right?
Yeah, 7:30. Yeah, it will be from Sagar and 8:30 from my side.
Okay.
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 All right. Take
Thank
care.
you, Ajay.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.